Imagine a world where the very ground beneath your feet is burning. It is the 13th century. The vast, sprawling territories of Russia are not a unified empire, but a collection of fractured principalities, trembling under the weight of an impossible choice. To the east, the horizon is black with the dust of the Mongol Horde, an unstoppable force that has turned the world's greatest cities into graveyards. To the west, the air is thick with the scent of incense and iron as European crusaders march forward with one goal: to replace the Russian faith with their own. This was a land on the brink of erasure, but in its darkest hour, a man emerged whose name would be whispered in cathedrals and sung on battlefields for 1,000 years. A man who became the Lion of the North and the Diplomat of the East. This is the story of Alexander Nevsky. Welcome to Preyo Tidings. Born in 1219 in the small town of Pereslavo, Alexander Yaroslavich was born into a family of warriors. But his childhood was not one of luxury. It was a rigorous apprenticeship in the art of survival. By the age of 17, he was sent to govern Novgorod, a wealthy, rebellious, and fiercely independent merchant city.
Novgorod was a hornet's nest. The nobility was difficult to manage, and the commoners were quick to riot. But more importantly, Novgorod was the gateway to the north. While the rest of Russia was falling to the Mongols in the south, the north remained the last bastion of Russian independence. Alexander knew that the eyes of Europe were fixed on this last piece of territory. He spent his early years not just ruling, but watching the horizons. He was a young man with the weight of an ancient culture on his shoulders, waiting for the first strike. The strike came in the summer of 1240. The Swedish Empire, sensing Russia's weakness after the Mongol invasions, sent a massive fleet led by the legendary Birger Jarl. They landed at the mouth of the Neva River, confident that the young prince of Novgorod would surrender without a fight. But Alexander understood a fundamental truth: a defensive war is a losing war. Instead of waiting behind the thick stone walls of his city, he gathered his small personal guard, the Druzhina, and a handful of local volunteers. He did not wait for help. He marched with a speed that defied logic. On the morning of July 15th, hidden by the thick river mists, Alexander launched a daring pre-dawn assault. The Swedish camp was thrown into absolute chaos. Men were cut down as they crawled out of their tents. In the heat of the clash, Alexander personally encountered Birger Jarl and, according to legend, wounded him in the face with a spear. The Swedes retreated in disgrace. This victory was so monumental that the people bestowed upon him the title that would echo through history, Nevsky. At just 21, Alexander had saved the North. But the Swedes were only the beginning. From the west came an even more terrifying foe, the Teutonic Knights. These were elite soldier monks encased in heavy steel plate armor, fueled by a religious fervor to conquer the Orthodox heretics. They captured the city of Pskov and moved toward Novgorod. Alexander knew he could not meet them in a traditional field of battle. Their heavy cavalry was too strong. He needed to turn the earth itself into a weapon. On April 5th, 1242, the two armies met on the frozen surface of Lake Peipus. This would become the legendary Battle on the Ice. As the ironclad knights charged in their famous wedge formation, Alexander's archers and footmen held the center, absorbing the shock. Then his hidden cavalry closed in from the flanks like a vice. But the true hero of the day was the ice. Under the immense weight of thousands of men and horses in heavy steel armor, the frozen surface began to groan. It shattered. Hundreds of the most elite knights in Europe were swallowed by the freezing black waters. The crusade was dead. Alexander had not just won a battle, he had protected the spiritual identity of Russia. With the west secured, Alexander turned to the east. Here, the challenge was different. The Mongol horde was too vast to be fought with a sword. One wrong move, and the Mongols would burn every Russian city to the ground. This is where Alexander's legacy becomes controversial, yet brilliant. While he was a lion against the Swedes, he became a fox with the Mongols. He realized that the Mongols didn't want to change their religion. They only wanted gold. Alexander chose to pay tribute. He traveled thousands of miles across the harsh steppes to the heart of the Mongol Empire to kneel before the Khan. He became a tax collector for his conquerors. Many of his own people called him a coward, but Alexander knew that gold was a cheap price for survival. By bowing his head, he bought time. He prevented the total annihilation of his people and allowed the Russian culture to breathe and rebuild in secret. He chose the shame of submission over the glory of a suicidal death. This was his most difficult and perhaps his greatest victory. In 1263, while returning from his final grueling journey to the Mongol capital, Alexander's health failed. He died at the age of 44, exhausted by a life spent between the sword and the pen. Upon hearing the news, the Metropolitan of the Russian Church famously cried out, "The sun of the Russian land has set." Alexander Nevsky was later canonized as a saint. He became the patron protector of Russia, a figure used by Peter the Great and even during the darkest days of World War II to inspire courage. He was a leader who understood that power is not just about winning wars, but about preserving your people at any cost. Alexander Nevsky's life teaches us that a true hero knows when to strike and when to wait. He was a man of iron and a man of wisdom. Thank you for listening to this journey through time on Preyo Tidings. If you were moved by the story of the man who saved a nation, please share this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the legends who shaped our world. Let us know in the comments, what would you have done in Alexander's shoes? Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.